What is up, everybody? This is your boy, Teran Rodriguez, bringing you another edition of Set Point. Ladies and gentlemen, we have ourselves a busy show today as we have quite a bit to go over, such as Stanford men's volleyball upsetting number 1 UCLA. How did the Cardinal do it? And who came up big? Also, how about number 2 UC Irvine knocking off the number 2 Long Beach State? How did number 2 Long Beach State lose a 2-0 lead over the Anteaters? And we had some upsets in NCAA Beach Volleyball as well. And I'll be discussing Week 11's NCAA men's volleyball matches, which is mostly going to be in the Midwest, because most of the more exciting matches are going to be headed towards the MIVA, because that race is getting tight. I'll also be discussing some more NCAA men's volleyball conferences. So hand me a volleyball, set up the net, because I'm about to serve you all some volleyball action here on Set Point. This is Teran Rodriguez bringing you another edition of Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And welcome one, welcome all to another edition of Set Point. I hope you all are having a great Monday evening. I know I am, because I'm happy to be doing Set Point. I did actually forget to make note of something that happened when it came to Set Point a couple weeks back, but I'll be getting more into that momentarily. For right now, it is time to discuss the volleyball action that happened. But first and foremost, we have a word from our sponsors, or sponsor. IE Sports Radio is sponsored by the Southern California Warriors semi-pro football team. The world of semi-pro sports is unlike any other sports organization. Players pay to play in hopes of so many different outcomes, whether it's playing to get filmed to try out for professional teams, big-time colleges, or just playing to stay in shape. No matter what, all semi-pro players have one thing in common, and that's playing for the love of the game. The SoCal Warriors have been on a quest to earn titles and give players second chances since 2017. Whether you're in Southern California or anywhere in the world, give semi-pro sports a chance if you love your sport. You may get that second chance you have been waiting for as an athlete. You can follow them on social media at SoCal Warriors, on Instagram at Southern California_Warriors, and on Facebook by typing in the word Southern California, then Warriors. And IE Sports Radio is on Twitter and on Instagram at IE Sports Radio, and on Facebook by typing the word IE Sports Radio. They also have a website, www.iesportsradio.com, and when you go there, you'll see a Patreon link, which has 5 different tiers. The first one starts at $5 a month. This donation gets you a shout-out from all of our shows. Higher tiers include IE Sports Radio merchandise, access to our podcasting universe, IESRU, and even a chance to be featured on IE Sports Radio's flagship show, The Defining Moment, with Larry B. Because for the past 7.5 years, IE Sports Radio has been building and bringing you amazing content, ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel, to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country, and also doing shows which are basically dedicated to certain sports like basketball, football, baseball, even combat sports. All the while, IE Sports Radio has continued to be by the fans and for the fans. With your help, IE Sports Radio is ready to take the next biggest step. Thank you, everyone, for continuing to make IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that is sports. And the 2022 NFL Draft is right around the corner. IE Sports Radio is excited to announce its 3rd annual mock draft challenge. The rules are simple. Predict all 32 first-round picks. No trades, no modifications, no tricks, none of that. The participant who has the best mock draft will receive a shout-out from all of our shows on IE Sports Radio and their choice of an IE Sports Radio hat or t-shirt. For more information or to submit your mock draft, please reach out to Mike Pat at letswine_IESR. By the way, that username is also in the chat, or not in the chat room, the description. It's going to be right under the Set Point Show Twitter account. So, good luck to everybody that wants to participate, and definitely do reach out to Mike Pat, because it's a fun little contest to participate in. And also gotta give a shout to our Patreon supporters, Bay Area Raised Apparel and Marcus Lewis Great. We appreciate your support. And without any further delay, let's get on into the NCAA Volleyball action. First, we have to greet the chat as we say hello to Gina G, who is in the chat room. She says, have an amazing show, and she says, yes, go Stanford, and she's tuning in even though the Warriors game is on and Draymond Green is returning, which is good stuff. I also got to give a shout to Mike Pat in the chat room. He says, the wine from last night has opened up beautifully, and he says, how is FSU doing in volleyball? I'll be getting into that in a little bit. And then Adam Karnick, who just got done with his show, Chi-Town Weekly, he says, good evening, Monday crew. Good evening to you too, sir. And now, without any further delay, let's get on into the volleyball action. So we'll start off with the men's volleyball side of things, just because there was a couple of exciting matchups that it was a quiet week overall. On paper, there weren't too many big-time matches, but there were big-time results. We'll start off with the one that happened on Thursday. Starting off with number 2 Long Beach State at unranked UC Irvine. The Anteaters were long yearning for a big-time win. They got a big-time win earlier in the season against Pepperdine, but they wanted to one-up that, as Big West Conference play is a whole different beast. So the first set, it was tight early on. UC Irvine led 17-14, but then Long Beach State scored 5 straight points after trailing 18-16, putting themselves up 21-18. And then Long Beach State also scored the last 4 points to take the first set 25-19. So after trailing 17-14, Long Beach went on an 11-2 run to take the first set, which was quite impressive. That's what really good teams do. The second set, Long Beach led most of the way, and they led by as many as 6, but credit to UC Irvine, they got to within 1 late in the set. Unfortunately, they just could not catch up to Long Beach State, as the Beach took the second set 25-23 and a 2-0 lead in the match. And it looked as if this was going to be a quick night for Long Beach State and UC Irvine. But you never want to count those Anteaters, as set 3, UC Irvine was in little to no danger as possible. They even led by as many as 9. You wouldn't think that Long Beach State would have all the momentum on their side, but UC Irvine had that never say die attitude. They took the third set 25-17, never trailed in that set, as UC Irvine stayed alive in the match. Then in set 4, UC Irvine led most of the set, but then Long Beach State tied it up at 12-12 after trailing by as many as 4. But then UC Irvine took control despite the Beach getting to within 1 at one point, as UC Irvine took the fourth set 25-22. And just like that, they forced a fifth set. Everyone at the Bren Event Center was probably going nuts on their feet, wondering how the heck did UC Irvine make this comeback. So the fifth set, UC Irvine jumped out to an early 3-1 lead, but Long Beach State answered back and led 6-4 due to UC Irvine errors. But then UC Irvine answered with a 7-2 run, as errors unfortunately caught up with Long Beach State and its outside hitter Alex Nikolov, who is still having a great season. As a result of those errors that Long Beach State had committed late in the fifth set, they just could not catch up to UC Irvine, and the Anteaters took the fifth set 15-12 and the match, completing the reverse sweep and the upset of number 2 Long Beach State, as that actually UC Irvine's win over Long Beach State marked the first win over Long Beach State since 2015. And at that time, former Long Beach State players Josh Tuaniga and TJ DeFalco were back in high school at Huntington Beach High School. So, honestly, that was a big win for the Anteaters. A reverse sweep at that, as UC Irvine really showed a lot of grit and determination. They really showed a lot of resilience after falling behind 2-0, because when most teams fall behind 0-2 to Long Beach State, most of them are throwing in the towel. But UC Irvine, they didn't do that, and they were patient. They were able to force Long Beach State into a whole lot of errors. And something else Long Beach State did, which I thought was a little uncharacteristic by them, they didn't have their middle blockers hit the ball as much. I mean, they had 12, between all of their middle blockers, they had 12 attempts, but they had 119 swings throughout the match, so that's not really a whole lot. That's probably like less than 10%. Their middles as a whole only had 4 kills, which is not all that impressive, and not even all of their middles were basically playing the whole match. Like, they had to shuffle around their middles, and they just weren't serving well, and their serve receive wasn't all that great. But I'll be getting into that in a little bit. UC Irvine was led by Cole Gillis, who had 18 kills, and he hit .364, which is darn impressive. Hilaire Heno chipped in 17 kills and hit .324, and Francesco Sani added 13 kills. Now, here's the stat where UC Irvine dominated. They dominated in serving. They had 12 service aces on the night. 6 of them came from Heno, while 3 of them came from Patrick Vorenkamp. And another stat that UC Irvine dominated in was digs, as they had 36 digs compared to Long Beach State's 27, which is not ideal. They were led in that category courtesy of Vorenkamp, who had 9. He almost had a double-double. As a team, UC Irvine hit .268, which is very impressive. Well, I mean, it's not impressive, but I mean, the fact that they got the job done is very impressive, and they just really, I can't get mad at that, just because UC Irvine really showed up. Long Beach State was led by Alex Nikolov, who had 18 kills. He hit .306, while Spencer Olivier also had 18 kills, and he hit .366. Clark Godbold added 11 kills, as, like I said, most of their kills came from the left side or right side, mainly from their outside hitters. So that's basically where Long Beach State scored a majority of its points. Nikolov added 3 service aces, while Mason Briggs chipped in 9 digs. I should also make note that Long Beach State did outblock UC Irvine, as they had 12 blocks as a team compared to UC Irvine's 8.5, but it just wasn't enough. So Long Beach State hit .269. They started off really good. They hit 400 in the first set, 385 in the second set, and then their hitting started dipping, as the third set they only hit 43 in the third set. The fourth set they hit 458, which wasn't bad. They only had 1 hitting error that set. But then the fifth set, it just kind of fell apart, as they hit 0 in that set, which is no bueno. So all in all, for Long Beach State, this kind of shows that they still have a little bit ways to go, if you ask me. But I think they're still in a solid position. The match after that, or the second matchup between Long Beach State and UC Irvine, Long Beach State handled UC Irvine mostly well as the match took place in the Pyramid, and long story short, Long Beach State swept UC Irvine. There's not really much to go over when it comes to that, but honestly, I thought it was quite impressive that Long Beach State bounced back. They needed that win, otherwise that would have been detrimental for them going into the Big West Conference going forward. Jumping on over to the MPSF, we had UCLA taking on Stanford at Maples Pavilion in Stanford, California. So Stanford, oh my gosh, where do I begin with Stanford? So Stanford had such a rough past 2 weeks. couple weeks ago, they lost to CSUN, which was downright not so good. And then last week, I didn't even know of these two losses. Stanford lost to Concordia. Now, Concordia is obviously one of the more underappreciated teams, and they're kind of the more... I think they were chosen to finish last in the MPSF, which is kind of saddening. So the fact that Stanford had lost 3 in a row going into this UCLA match meant that they were heavy underdogs. And you can't really lose to Concordia just because the whole MPSF is loaded as a whole. So when it came to this matchup, I was thinking, okay, Stanford's going to have to really play good if they want to beat UCLA. Sure enough, they did. As the first set, Stanford took the first set 25-20 as the biggest lead of the set going into that set was 1 starting out. And then Stanford led 12-10 and never trailed after that, despite getting some strong comeback efforts from UCLA. Then in set 2, it was tight for the most part. It was tied at 20-20 to 1 point, but then UCLA scored 3 straight points and never looked back as they took that second set 25-22, tying this matchup at 1-1. Then the third set, UCLA and Stanford were tied early on, but Stanford broke an 11-11 tie with 3 straight points, and they never put themselves in any danger after that as they won the third set 25-18. And suddenly Maples Pavilion was starting to believe. They were all thinking, oh my gosh, we're actually going to pull off this win, and it's going to be fun. But UCLA wasn't going to go down without a fight, as they were hardly in danger in that fourth set, but they were tied at 14-14, but then a 5-0 run from the Bruins pretty much ended it for them in that set, despite Stanford being hot on their coattails as they won the fourth set 25-23. Now for set 5. UCLA led in the first half of set 5. They led 7-5 at one point, but then Stanford scored 4 straight points to take the lead at 9-7, and then everyone at Maples Pavilion, UCLA and Stanford fans, were on pins and needles. It was eventually tied at 11-11, but then 3 hitting errors from UCLA, yes, 3 hitting errors from UCLA doomed them, as that gave Stanford match point. Despite needing another match point to convert, they got the kill from Will Rotman, and the celebration was on. Number 1 went down as Stanford won the match. They won the 5th set 15-12, and they won the match 3-2. So this was definitely Stanford's biggest win of the season, just because the Cardinal had needed a big win like this, especially after having such an embarrassing past couple weeks. It just goes to show that Stanford is probably one of the more underappreciated teams. They have talent on their team. It's just that they kind of hit a little bit of a rough patch, as they were led by said Will Rotman, who had 18 kills, and he also chipped in 4 service aces, which was very impressive. Stanford also got kill contributions from Luke Turner and Kevin Lamp, who each had 12 kills. Turner hit .435 and chipped in 11 digs, which was quite nice for Stanford. As a team, Stanford hit .348, which was very impressive. So, great stuff from them. Kevin Lamp also chipped in 3 service aces. And like I said, Luke Turner had his double-double with 11 digs and 12 kills. So, I was very impressed that Stanford pulled off the win. And I've seen Will Rotman in action. He is a freaking beast. So, to see him pulling off a big win like that, especially since he sacrificed so much to get into Stanford, is quite nice. As for UCLA, they were led by Guy Guinness, who had 14 kills. He hit .455. Ethan Champlin had 11 kills and he hit .350, while Kevin Coburn added 10 kills and he hit .320. Coburn also chipped in 9 digs, as UCLA barely outdid Stanford in that category, 39-36. Adam says he heard good news about Concordia. Yes, Concordia of Irvine was able to defeat Stanford twice last week, which I guess is pretty good, considering Concordia was picked to finish last in the conference, so there's that. But back to UCLA. UCLA actually hit .344 in the match, which was very impressive. For losing that match, they hit 344, and it wasn't all that bad. The only negative that I can pretty much say that UCLA had was that they missed 28 serves. You cannot win matches by missing 28 serves. It just doesn't work that way. Like, it really does not. Like, one player on UCLA missed 6 serves, one player on UCLA missed 5, and then another player missed 4. It just, you can't win matches like that, especially in the MPSF. So now this loss kind of opened up the door for other teams, as all eyes were on the second matchup. And I'm just going to skim through this matchup. I didn't really go into full detail. So the first set, Stanford came out hot. They took the first set 25-20 as they hit a whopping 500 in that set. They had 15 kills and only 1 hitting error. Stanford was ready to go, and they were looking for another upset. But then UCLA came back in that second set. They dominated the second set, winning it 25-13. UCLA meant business in that second set. They held Stanford to negative 36 in set 2 in terms of hitting percentage. While they had a 500 hitting percentage, they had 0 hitting errors. UCLA just was not playing any games. Then the third set was very interesting. It was back and forth as Stanford actually led 23-22, but unfortunately for them, UCLA scored 3 straight points, and it came from 3 kills from 3 different players as they won the third set 25-23. Then the fourth set, Stanford had set point at 24-23, but they just couldn't convert. And while UCLA needed 2 match points to close out the match, they did get it from Merrick McHenry as UCLA avoided the upset. They avoided the fifth set as they won the fourth set 27-25 and the match. So it was great stuff from the Bruins. They hit 426 in that match as they got 17 kills from Merrick McHenry, 14 kills from Ethan Champlin, 12 kills from Kevin Coburn, who also chipped in 11 digs, and 10 kills from Alex Knight. Stanford hit 313, and they got 16 kills from Will Rotman and 14 kills from Luke Turner, who hit 417. So the only negative thing that I could say about Stanford was that they only had 3 blocks as a team. So, yeah, in my opinion, I thought Stanford wasn't really all that effective hitting the ball. So I'm actually going to take myself a quick little commercial break. When we come back, we will have more NCAA men's volleyball action. So you are listening to Set Point here on iSports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. We'll be right back after this.
What is going on, everybody? My name is Harrison Glazer, and we're coming at you from the Show That Never Sleeps podcast. I cover the Jets, the Islanders, the Nets, and the Yankees.
This is Pierre Moss, and I cover the Mets, Knicks, Rangers, and the Giants.
Our show is live every Wednesday through Spreaker and a bunch of other ways to get our content. Again, we're the Show That Never Sleeps podcast. We talk about all those New York sports. It's a lot of fun. We get into all of it. Please tune in. Again, that's Wednesdays at 6 p.m.
And we look forward to having you guys right here on iSports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
All right, we are back here with Set Point here on iSports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. So back to the UCLA-Stanford match. All in all, I think the turning point for UCLA was the third set. If they don't take that third set, Stanford's up 2-1, and then they have UCLA on their heels, and it's a whole different storyline. So UCLA deserves a lot of credit for winning that third set. And then their resilience was shown in set 4 as they dodged 1 set point, and they just didn't allow Stanford to force that 5th set. I was fearing it was going to go 5, and I'm thinking, wow, UCLA actually prevented it from going 5. So good job to UCLA. Tough one for Stanford as they just missed out on another big upset, but I think this just goes to show that no team is safe in conference play, no matter what your ranking is. But regardless, I was very impressed with Stanford this past weekend, and I don't think anybody should be sleeping on them, especially at Maples. So we'll see. As Mike Pat is like, got a set point. I'll see my. Well, that's what it's called, set point. It is what it's called. Like, set point is basically the terminology of you're about to win the set, but you just need to score one more point. So, good old Mike Pat in the chat room. Keep doing you, buddy. So, anyway, to close out Week 10, I think this past week showed us that no team is safe in conference play, and that I think every conference minus the EIVA is going to be a one-loss conference for the regular season champion. And it also just goes to show that the conference tournament is way more important than the regular conference season title. So for me, I think that the conference regular season championship doesn't mean all that much. I mean, it obviously does mean quite a bit, but if you're not taking advantage of that number one seed, or you're losing along the way, kind of like how Hawaii did against UC San Diego in the Big West Conference tournament, the number one seed will not mean jack squat. So I think for conferences, if you don't win the regular season title, it's not the end of the world. Like, you still can win the conference tournament, and then you'd get that automatic bid. But for winning the regular season conference title, it won't mean jack squat if you win it or don't win it. So, for me, I think every conference, like I said, outside of the EIVA, is wide open. Because you look at the MIVA, not too much separates it from Loyola, Ball State, and McKendree. Look at the Big West. Even though it's in its infant stages, you have Long Beach State and Hawaii already having one loss. And then you also have UC Santa Barbara, despite graduating, I think, 4 All-Americans, just basically continuing its dominance. And then you have the MPSF, which is basically a 5-horse race. Well, not 5-horse race, a 3-horse race between USC, Pepperdine, and UCLA. I think that conference is definitely going to be one to watch for, especially with all these teams that are super competitive. I think that conference is very much wide open. And heck, don't even sleep on Grand Canyon. Even though the Lopes kind of blew their chances against UCLA, I think GCU could still make noise in the MPSF tournament. So, and remember, you don't have to, when it comes to the at-larges, there's not too much wiggle room when it comes to getting an at-large, just because I think there's only 1 or 2 at-larges. If I remember correctly, last year I remember Hawaii got it, and then I don't remember who got the other at-large, but regardless, oh yeah, now I remember. It was Pepperdine. Pepperdine was the runner-up in the MPSF tournament, and as a result, they got an at-large over UCLA, while Hawaii got the other at-large because they lost in the semifinals of the Big West Conference. Even though UC San Diego was the runner-up, and they wound up losing to UC Santa Barbara, who got the automatic qualifier. So, for me, automatic qualifiers are pretty much everything. You have to get that automatic qualifier because there are too many good teams that are going to be vying for that at-large. And we could be seeing a good team getting left out of the big dance. Like, it could be anybody. It could be any top 5 team. So, we'll have to see what happens with everyone going forward. But I think conference play is going to show who are the true contenders and who are the true pretenders. So we'll see what happens when it comes to the conference going forward. But that is going to be a wrap for Week 10 of the NCAA men's volleyball season. Let's jump on into the AVCA coaches polls for this week, as there were quite a number of teams that shifted up and down and in and out of the conference, the coaches poll, just because of the said results from last week. So we'll start from 15 to 11. So 15 is NJIT, 14 is Stanford, 13 is UC Irvine, 12 is Lewis, and 11 is Loyola of Chicago. 10 through 6 consists of UC San Diego at 10, Grand Canyon at 9, Ball State at 8, Pepperdine at 7, and UC Santa Barbara at 6. 5 through 1 consists of USC at 5, Hawaii at 4, Long Beach State at 3, Penn State at 2, and your number 1 team in the AVCA Division 1 and 2 men's volleyball coaches poll for March 14th is UCLA. So despite losing to Stanford this past weekend, UCLA remains as the number 1 team in the nation. So let's jump on over to which team had the worst loss between UCLA and Long Beach State. It is clearly evident that Long Beach State had the worst loss. Just because you're up 2-0 in the match on an opponent on the road, and you wind up whiffing on the next 3 sets. Again, it did not help that they didn't really get their middles involved, and it was just the Alex Nikolov, Spencer Olivier show, as well as a little Clark Godbold, but they just played a little uncharacteristic after that second set. Like the third set, they played really uncharacteristic. Fourth set, they weren't as effective, and they just could not get that lead gripped down. And then the fifth set, they just unfortunately could not grasp that lead. Like they had the lead in that fifth set, but unfortunately, they just could not run away with it. Like errors were hurting them, and honestly, I thought it was just an uncharacteristic match for Long Beach State. Now, jumping on over to UCLA, obviously their loss hurt just because they lost on the road, but they lost further away from home. Like, I mean, you can give the excuse to UCLA that they had to play 2 matches in Maples Pavilion, which is a tough place to win at, and you're basically like 5 hours away from home, approximately. But honestly, for Long Beach State, they don't really have too much of an excuse. You're up 2-0. You're facing a team that hasn't really had a whole lot of success, and you wind up losing the next 3 sets. It's not good, especially in the Big West Conference, which is crawling with good teams. Like UC San Diego is good. Hawaii, you still have to play them. UC Santa Barbara, you play them in a couple more weeks. Like, Long Beach State can now no longer afford too many Big West Conference losses. As we say hello to Davidson Crooks in the chat, he says, "What's good?" Hey, brother. Just talking some NCAA men's volleyball. But for Long Beach State, I was really surprised they had themselves an uncharacteristic night against UC Irvine. But credit to the Anteaters. They showed that they want to win that match super badly. Because like I said, their last win against Long Beach State came in 2015. That's like 7 years ago. And back when Long Beach State had those stud players, TJ DeFalco and Josh Tuaniga, they were all in high school winning national championships at the high school level. So for Long Beach State to lose to UC Irvine, it's not good. It's not a good look for them. And now they're pretty much going to have to run the table going forward. Fortunately, they do get a little bit of a break from Big West Conference play, but next week, well, the next 2 weeks in Big West Conference play, they have a gauntlet. They have Santa Barbara, UC Santa Barbara, at home and on the road, and then the following week they play Hawaii, which is basically both at Long Beach State, and that's basically what could make or break their number 1 seed possibilities. But like when it comes to these men's basketball conference tournaments and some of these teams being the number 1 seed, sometimes it just doesn't matter if you're the number 1 seed or not. All you got to do is just play some good volleyball down the stretch. And that's what Hawaii and UCLA and Long Beach State should be doing. They got to be playing better volleyball down the stretch, because a couple more losses here and there could destroy their team chemistry and any hopes of them possibly gaining momentum and going into the remainder of their conference games and possibly the conference tournament. So all in all, I think this loss for Long Beach State was a wake-up call for them, as well as UCLA, and then as well as Hawaii from last week. So for me, I think it's a wake-up call for those teams, because not every team can beat Penn State, which is basically mowing down its conference, which for Penn State, it's their conference to lose. And then the MIVA is still up for grabs, like I said, with Loyola of Chicago, and then Ball State. They're having a fantastic season. McKendree is still in the hunt. And I hate to say this, but even Lewis is still in the hunt to possibly get that number 1 seed when it comes to the MIVA tournament. But regardless, it's going to be a fight to the finish when it comes to these conferences. So that is that for the NCAA men's volleyball talk from Week 10. Now let's jump on over to some NCAA beach volleyball talk, as Mike Pat did ask a question. He said, how is Florida State doing in volleyball? Well, when it comes to beach volleyball, they're actually doing good. They're not doing bad. My only concern is for FSU is that they actually faced some stiff competition this weekend, and unfortunately, they kind of had a little bit of a bumpy ride, mainly when they played USC and TCU. So, Florida State lost to number 2 USC 3-1 as they were playing in the Stetson Sun and Sand Invitational, as they wound up winning their final 2 matches against Tampa and number 18 Stetson, but unfortunately losing to TCU kind of hurt them. I'm sorry, not TCU. They played them like the following week. So basically, they just lost to USC. So Florida State went 2-1 on the weekend. Unfortunately, USC kind of got the better of them, but USC is the reigning champion. Like, you can't expect to have an easy out against the Trojans. And yes, Mike Pat, it is so. But for last week's coaches poll, which I'll be getting into, the coaches poll from the AVCA Collegiate Beach Coaches Poll Top 20 went like this. So 20 through 16 consisted of Cal State Bakersfield at 20, South Carolina at 19, Stetson at 18, Florida International at 17, and Georgia State at 16. 15 through 11 consisted of Pepperdine at 15, Long Beach State at 14, Arizona at 13, Florida Atlantic at 12, and Cal Poly at 11. 10 through 6 consisted of Cal at 10, Hawaii at 9, Stanford at 8, Grand Canyon at 7, and Loyola Marymount, or LMU, at 6. 5 through 1 consisted of LSU at 5, Florida State at 4, TCU at 3, USC at 2, and the number 1 team in the Week 2 Beach Volleyball Coaches Poll is UCLA. So UCLA is now dominant in NCAA men's volleyball and NCAA beach volleyball. So there was that. Jumping on over to the upsets from the NCAA beach volleyball Week 3, there were a couple upsets that kind of caught my eye, and I think they were the only upsets when it came to the top 20. So the big one came from Arizona State defeating number 13 Arizona 3-2, which was darn right impressive. I was like, wait a minute, is Arizona State any good? And I looked, and they weren't all that great, which I don't know how Arizona whiffed on that one. Like, it was kind of bad. That's kind of a bad loss for Arizona, just because the coaches poll is tomorrow. Yes, the coaches poll is every Tuesday, which is a problem for Set Point because now I can't go over the actual coaches poll from this week. I have to go over it from last week, and then basically it's a problem. But it is what it is. So this came from the ASU Tri matchup from last Tuesday, as Arizona lost to Arizona State 3-2 after beating Benedictine. So this is obviously not a matchup that Arizona want to see. They just got to throw that matchup away and just move on. Especially since the Pac-12 is so loaded. Like, you look at the Pac-12. UCLA, Stanford, USC, heck, even Cal is good. It's going to be an all-out war, I tells ya. So the second upset, which wasn't really a big upset, but this one came at the hands of number 19 South Carolina defeating Pepperdine 4-1. Now, Pepperdine has kind of taken a tumble from grace, as they were one of the more dominant teams back in the previous decade, but now they've kind of taken a backseat to LMU, which is unfortunate for them just because, well, LMU's rise to power is now Pepperdine taking a backseat and basically being second banana in the West Coast Conference. But South Carolina kind of needed a win like this just because they lost to Georgia State last weekend. They had themselves a rough weekend last weekend as they went 1-3. But this weekend they went 3-1 as they defeated Pepperdine 4-1. They lost to LSU, which is currently undefeated at the moment, 1-4. And then they beat Louisiana Monroe and Mercer 5-0. So all in all, South Carolina kind of needed that win just so that they can keep themselves afloat in the coaches poll. I could see the Gamecocks still possibly rising up. I think they have a solid team. It's just all about if they can put it together going forward. And for me, I think that South Carolina does have a couple good players, and they have a good team overall. It's just that, do they have the depth to go forward? Like, I'm not saying South Carolina is bad, but I am saying that they're going to need to be more than just good. They're going to need to be great in order to take down the TCUs, the USCs, the FSUs, the UCLAs. You get the point. And then TCU is still undefeated, which is darn right impressive, as well as LSU and UCLA. So there is that right there for your beach volleyball roundup. And that is pretty much going to do it for the NCAA Beach Volleyball side of things. Let's take ourselves another commercial break. When we come back, we'll have the Week 11 NCAA Men's Volleyball preview, as it's mainly going to be MIVA talk. So if you're a fan of Loyola of Chicago, Lewis, McKendree, Ohio State, and Ball State, and all those other MIVA teams, this is your segment. So you were listening to Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. We'll be right back after this.
What's up, sports fans? Are you looking for the latest on Northern California sports? Then take a trip out west with me, your host, Gina G, on Reppin' to NorCal Sports, right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. I'll be bringing it to you all the way live every Monday at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern. And it's always a packed show. I'll bring you everything Dynastic 49ers, the bite of the San Jose Sharks, torture of the San Francisco Giants, the Golden State Warriors that we still believe. Then take you across the bay to the rise and grind of the Oakland A's. I've got you covered on college ball from the Cal Bears to the Stanford Cardinal, so that no matter what, reppin' in NorCal Sports is always reppin' the Bay. So if you bleed red and gold, or you're looking to keep an eye out west in them thar hills, don't miss me, Gina G, on reppin' in NorCal Sports. Catch me every Monday at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern, and I'll have your fandom repped harder than a trio of defenders guarding Stephen Curry before his buzzer beater is Gucci.
Sports fans, do you like teams that are tough, cities that are tougher, and fan bases that are passionate about their teams? How about teams that are historic and stadiums that are iconic? Then you belong in Chicago, and you need to check out Chi-Town Weekly. Join me, Adam Kernan, every week as we keep up with all things Chicago sports. Bears, Bulls, Blackhawks, Cubs, White Sox. We'll cover them all, plus more. The Windy City is always buzzing, and we'll keep you up on all the big games and major stories. So tune in to Chi-Town Weekly every week right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Davidson.
It's your boy, Dentarius Live.
And we are the hosts of Fast Break here on IE Sports Radio, where we discuss everything in the world of basketball from prep to the pros.
You guys should definitely check us out, man. Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. We got all the basketball information you guys need, so we look forward to you guys listening in.
And please do, because we are the best basketball show on this side of the Mississippi. And please do check us out on Twitter at FastBreakISR. D-Lock, where's our time again?
8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. That give you guys plenty of time on a Sunday.
Tune in.
And we are back with segment number 2 of Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. Once again, definitely do check out all of our amazing shows, such as the Show That Never Sleeps podcast with Harrison Glazer and Pierre Moss. They talk about New York sports. Definitely check out Reppin' to NorCal Sports with Gina G. She'll be going on tomorrow at probably 1 p.m. and then she'll also be going live with Casey Lima every Friday at 6 p.m. Chi-Town Weekly comes on every Monday, 1 hour before this show goes live, as Adam Carnick talks about all things Chicago sports. And then Fast Break with Davidson Crooks and Dentarius Slock goes on every Sunday at 5 p.m. Pacific Time, 8 p.m. Eastern. They talk all things basketball. NCAA March Madness is basically here, and it starts sooner rather than later. It starts tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken. So let's jump on into week number 11 in terms of the NCAA men's volleyball season, as this will probably be the final segment, and then I'll send you all on your way. So we don't have too many noteworthy matches for this week, just because most of these teams are actually on bye week, as UCLA is on bye week because I was told they have finals or midterms, but either way, they don't have any byes this week. And then other ranked teams that don't have any matches this week are Hawaii, UC San Diego, UC Santa Barbara, and UC Irvine. There is not going to be a match of the week this week, just because there aren't really too many to pick from once again, and there aren't too many ranked on ranked matches. So the sneaky good matchups to watch for week 11 is number 11 Loyola at Purdue of Fort Wayne. So why did I pick this matchup, dare you ask? Well, Loyola is currently at the top of the MIVA, and it's a dogfight for the top spot in the MIVA, as Loyola is only a half a game ahead of Ball State in the conference. Remember, Loyola took down Ball State, as Loyola definitely showed what they were truly made of, as Loyola actually will be playing one match this week, and that's kind of the reason why I have their matchup against Purdue of Fort Wayne as my sneaky good matchup, just because that matchup will put them at 8 conference matches played, and then everyone else will probably have 8 conference matches played, unless, of course, they're Quincy, who already has 8 matches played, as well as Lindenwood. So, for me, it's basically going to be that little matchup. And then, also, Ohio State has a couple matches, so they're kind of going to be ahead of the pack, but I'm pretty sure Ohio State will find a way to basically eventually get even in terms of conference games played. So, definitely do keep an eye out for Loyola of Chicago versus Purdue of Fort Wayne. The Mastodons they're in 4th place, which isn't bad, and I think they're having an underwhelming season. I think everyone just hasn't really noticed them just because of their conference record. But for Purdue of Fort Wayne, they are 4th in the conference. A win would get them closer to Loyola of Chicago and possibly Ball State, but they still have a ways to go if they want to get to the number 1 seed of the MIVA. So that's kind of my sneaky good matchup to watch for. So let's jump on into the actual matches to watch for. And spoiler alert, they're all MIVA matches. So this is kind of the MIVA segment because every other team is either on bye this week or they don't have a matchup that's probably noteworthy in my opinion. So matches to watch for. So we'll start with Wednesday. We have number 8 Ball State at Ohio State. So Ohio State was ranked until last week when they had such a rough week. They lost twice to Penn State, even though they took a set off of Penn State at Rec Hall. And then they also lost to St. Francis. So it was a rough week for the then number 13 Buckeyes, as Ohio State is doing all it can to try to improve its conference record and its record overall. Ohio State currently rests in 5th place in the MIVA, while Ball State is currently 2nd. So for Ball State, this is a very important matchup. They can't underestimate Ohio State. Ohio State does have some studs on their team, and this is basically the start of a 2-set match. Well, not like a 2-set match, but a 2-match series. Like the first match is going to be at Ohio State, and then the second match is going to be at Ball State. So Ohio State needs to take care of business at Covelli, because if they don't, then winning the conference will get further and further, especially since the conference is so deep. Like, you look at the MIVA, it's really deep pretty much from top to bottom. Even Lindenwood is good, and heaven forbid Lewis is also good, even though Lewis has just been a sheer disappointment in terms of the conference. So all in all, for Ohio State, they have to get the job done. Ball State also cannot look past the Buckeyes. Just because Ohio State does have some studs on their team, and they are well coached. Kevin Birch does a good job of coaching the Buckeyes. The Buckeyes just haven't been that team ever since 2000, and I want to say it was 17 when they last won it. But regardless, I think for me, this is going to be a fun little matchup. We'll see if the Cardinals can keep up their winning ways, because Ball State, I think Ball State's the last team everyone thought was going to have a big-time season. So we'll see what happens when it comes to the Cardinals and the Buckeyes. Jumping over to Thursday, we have number 14 McKendree at number 12 Lewis. This is the only ranked-on-ranked matchup or series we'll be getting this week. So this is an all-important matchup for both Lewis and McKendree. Both these teams really need this matchup. McKendree is 14th in the coaches poll despite having a better record than Lewis in terms of the conference. McKendree definitely, if they want to continue to keep pace with Ball State and Loyola, they're going to need to beat Lewis. But beating Lewis is going to be easier said than done, in my opinion. It's basically an interstate conference or an interstate rivalry matchup, and this is going to be played at Lewis. The first matchup is going to be played at Lewis. So for McKendree, they really have to show up big. Lewis, in my opinion, they definitely need this match as well, just because they're having an awful season. Awful with a capital A, in my opinion. So, and we all know how I feel about Lewis, just because I have roasted them. As we say hello to Pierre Moss, he says, have a great show as always, my man. I appreciate you. I'm talking Midwest NCAA men's volleyball. I'm sorry if I'm not talking about the East Coast, such as St. Francis of Brooklyn and NJIT, but they'll get their little segment eventually. So, back to McKendree and Lewis. This is a big matchup for both these teams. I could go as far as to say that whichever team loses will probably not win the MIVA regular season conference title. But like I said in the previous segments, winning or losing the regular season championship is not the worst thing in the world. It just doesn't help your seed. It just doesn't give you that number 1 seed. Like, you could be the number 2 seed or the number 4 seed. Heck, you could be the 5 or the bottom seed and you still have a chance to win. Well, I wouldn't say the bottom seed, but you still could have a chance to win regardless of your seed, just because look at what happened with UC San Diego now. So, for me, I think that any team in the MIVA has a chance to win the conference tournament, so long as they're playing some good volleyball. So, I think McKendree and Lewis is going to be a little bit of a dogfight. It's a 2-game series just like Ball State and Ohio State, and I think for McKendree, if they want to prove themselves as actual contenders in this conference, they're going to need to beat Lewis. At least once. If they can beat Lewis once, they're golden. If they lose to them both times, then I kind of question on how McKendree is having themselves a solid year. They had themselves a great win over Pepperdine a week ago, but then they've kind of they're kind of that up and down team. 1 week they have themselves a great win, and then which has everyone saying, "Oh, McKendree should be ranked." And then they have themselves a not so good loss, which has everyone saying, "Okay, McKendree should not be ranked." Like they also lost to LMU, Lincoln Memorial. So for me, I think McKendree is they're kind of that up and down team. Lewis, on the other hand, they have wins that prove that they should still be ranked, but to me, they're still so suspect when it comes to being ranked in the AVCA men's volleyball coaches polls. I think this is a prove me wrong matchup. Prove me that you actually are a contender in this conference. Because Lewis only has a whopping 2 conference wins to its name. And they continue to disappoint me every time they lose a conference game. They're 2-4 in the conference, and their only conference wins have come against Ohio State, which is not that impressive, and Quincy, which is basically the bottom feeder. Every loss has basically been every loss they've had has been via sweep, or with the exception of Lindenwood, a 5-set loss, which is downright disappointing. And other than the UCLA win, they don't really have any standoutish wins. So if Lewis somehow makes it all the way to the conference finals of their tournament and then they wind up losing, I don't think they get in as an at-large. I highly doubt they get in as an at-large, just because, yes, they did battle number 4 Hawaii to the best of their ability last weekend, but they only took 1 set, and that was basically a deuce set. Now, had Lewis beaten Hawaii, or if they pushed Hawaii to 5 sets, I think I would have been a little bit more intrigued, but unfortunately, I'm still not sold on Lewis. So, Lewis has to basically win at least one matchup. They have to win at least one matchup, if not both matchups. I think they're more of the case of they have to win both matches if they want to have any chance of improving their seeding for the MIVA tournament. Jumping over to Friday's noteworthy matches, we have, once again, Ohio State at number 8 Ball State. This is basically the Wednesday matchup, except flip-flopped. Ohio State will be the away team, and Ball State will be the home team. Once again, Ball State is having themselves a phenomenal year. They're having a season where I don't think anyone predicted their success. Ball State is just having a great season, and I want to say Ball State had themselves in a season to forget just because Ball State was not... I don't think Ball State was anywhere near good as last year. Like compare last year's team to this year's team, it's not comparable. Ball State this year is 13-2. Ball State last year was 12-8. They finished with 12 wins. Ball State at the moment has 13 wins. This is very incredible. Like, you really cannot script this for Ball State. They're just having a season to remember, and they're not crumbling along the way. Like, they started off 4-0 last year. They wound up losing to Ohio State, then Lewis again. And yes, they did beat Ohio State, but then they kind of crumbled once again, losing to Loyola, and then eventually losing to McKendree. And yes, Ball State did make it all the way to the semifinals, but they lost to Lewis. Now Ball State has everyone turning heads. They're in the top 10 of their coaches poll. And more importantly, this is looking like a season where Ball State could, hence the word could, possibly get in as an at-large. It all depends on who comes out of the Big West Conference, or who comes out of the MPSF, or who comes out of the EIVA, or the Conference Carolinas, or any of that sort. Regardless, Ball State is having a great season, and they definitely have the potential to go all the way in their conference. Now, going all the way in the NCAA is kind of another story. Can they defeat the Long Beach States? Can they defeat a fully healthy Hawaii team? Can they beat the UCLAs? Can they beat a Penn State team, which is just basically kicking butt and taking names? That still remains to be seen. But for me, Ball State is just having an outstanding season. Ohio State can only hope to try to contain or Ball State. I think the Buckeyes can do some damage against the Cardinals. But for me, if Ohio State wants to get any sort of momentum, they have to at least take one match against Ball State. And I feel their best matchup of trying to win a match against the Cardinals will be winning a matchup in the Covelli Center in Columbus, Ohio. If they can't win at least one set in Covelli, they're going to have a tough time winning a set in Ball State. So we'll see what happens when it comes to the Cardinals and when it comes to the Buckeyes. But once again, Ball State is just having a phenomenal season. They're almost perfect at home. Unfortunately, that one blemish against Loyola of Chicago kind of has them imperfect in conference play and at home. So I think it's going to be a fight to the finish. And once again, I think the MIVA is so wide open. I don't think you could predict any sort of conference champion at this point. Like, you have to keep a sharp eye out in that conference, because any team that wins a match or loses a match could basically be their own worst enemy or their own best friend, or they could be helping someone else. So we'll see what happens in this conference. And then closing out the noteworthy matchups for this week on Saturday is number 12 Lewis at number 14 McKendree. Once again, this is a big matchup for both teams. Lewis needs to win both these matches, in my opinion, while McKendree just needs to win at least one. If they win both matchups against Lewis, I really think that McKendree is putting themselves in a prime position to win, to at least keep themselves in the hunt for the MIVA regular season conference title. But for me, I think they're fine regardless. I think they're a team that no one wants to play in the MIVA. And silly me, McKendree is not even ranked when it comes to the AVCA coaches poll. So forget about me saying that McKendree was number 14. They are not 14. I forgot that Stanford is number 14, but you know what I mean. McKendree is still having themselves a phenomenal season, and winning both matches against Lewis this weekend would be quite something. I think that would be crucial for the Bearcats. If they could win both matches against Lewis, that's a big victory, especially since that keeps them so close to Ball State and Loyola, especially if one of those two beat one another or if one of those two slip up. So, once again, the MIVA is so unpredictable right now. I think the Midwest is going to be madness. I think we're going to see Midwest madness, Midwest mania, and I think it's going to be winner take all when it comes to the MIVA tournament. Well, obviously it's going to be winner take all, but it's going to be a bloodbath. I think Loyola is obviously playing great volleyball as of late, but then they have to watch out for the well-improved Ball State. And then you also cannot sleep on McKendree, who is just having a great season. Like Kevin Birch called this all the way back when Ohio State played Long Beach State. He said the entire MIVA is well improved. Even Lindenwood and Quincy are not to be slept on. Even Purdue of Fort Wayne is not to be slept on. You just can't underestimate anybody in this conference. It's absolutely madness, I tell you. Midwest mania, ladies and gentlemen. So that is going to do it for the Week 11 preview for the NCAA men's volleyball matches. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for this week's episode of Set Point. Without any further delay, let us drop that beat, because I'm about to dip like a banana in chocolate. You feel me? Thank you everyone for tuning in to Set Point. I really do appreciate you all tuning in. If you were listening live, I appreciate you. If you were listening on the playback, I appreciate you. If you were listening at work, I appreciate you. If you were listening while watching the Warriors game, I appreciate you. If you were listening at any point of the day, of the week, I do appreciate you, no matter what and how you were listening to. Big shout to the chat room, such as Mike, Pat, Davidson Brooks, Pierre Moss, Adam Carnick, and Gina G. I appreciate you all tuning in. I appreciate everybody listening in, because without you, Set Point wouldn't amount to too much. I will be doing the SoCal Supreme Sports Show this week. It'll probably be on Saturday yet again. We'll have to see what happens. Until then, for everyone here at IE Sports Radio, this is Teran Rodriguez signing off. You all have yourselves a great rest of the evening. Please stay safe, because this virus is still going about. Be good to one another. Be kind. Don't be a jerk. Don't find yourself on the dum-dum of the reward list. And I will see you in the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. Peace!